In all of Bleach, BG9 is probably one of the weirdest characters. We have a literal robot that is somehow a Quincy with a Schrift, and on top of that weirdness, BG9 is just never explained to us. Ever. We don't even know what a Schrift stands for, just that it starts with K. So, in this video, we're going to be breaking down what little we know about him and exploring some theories about him, along with my own personal theory that BG9 is not the true Sternritter K, but I'll get into that later. To start off, we know BG9 is a Sternritter with the Schrift K, but what does the K stand for? There are a few standout theories, with the most popular relating K to something like the knowledge, the know, or the knowing. Personally, I feel like this theory is all but confirmed. BG9 on numerous occasions mentions collecting data or attempts to retrieve data during his battle with Soifan. He even has tendril-like appendages that assumedly are there for the sole purpose of collecting data. Having appendages meant solely to gather data would make a ton of sense if his Schrift was associated with knowledge or knowing in some capacity. This theory holds the most water in my eyes, but I'll go over a couple others. The kill, or the killer, is another fairly popular assumption, and I can absolutely see why one would think that. BG9 is cold, calculating, and uncaring, the perfect qualities for a killer. He is quite literally a killing machine. We can see this most when he attempts to kill Omeda's sister without a second thought or any remorse. The kill is probably the second most likely designation for BG9's Schrift. The final designation I want to go over is a bit shaky, and that is the Knight. No, not the night sky, like a knight in armor. This designation is really loose because the only viable reasoning for it is just that BG9 kind of looks like a knight. I mean, with his helmet, I can kind of see it, but it's only a passing resemblance at most. But the main reason I'm against this is because he has no knightly qualities. You'd think if Kubo introduced a knight, he'd be more like Gerard, but BG9 is nothing like Gerard, so I think this, like I said, I think this idea is shaky at best. So, what is BG9? Before we get into that, I'd like to ask you to like and subscribe. As a small channel, it helps me out more than you know, and I'd appreciate it a ton. Now let's get back into the theories. Anyway, now that we're done theorizing over his Schrift, what is BG9 himself? The simplest theory is that he's just a robot. Nothing more, nothing less. Yhwach ordered a robot to be made, bound a Schrift to it, and that gave it life. If his Schrift truly is the knowledge, binding a Schrift like that to an inanimate object could very easily give it sentience. I don't think that's too out there, but if it isn't the knowledge, it'd make zero sense. Also, we don't know if a Schrift can even be bound to an inanimate object, which leads to our next theory. BG9 potentially being a vessel for the soul of a Quincy. This would certainly explain how he could have had a Schrift bound to him, and why he'd be considered a Quincy at all. Now, how was this potential soul bound to the armor? No idea. Maybe someone used alchemy and sacrificed an arm. Jokes aside though, it's likely that this would be feasible for Gremmy, and considering Shaz Domino, it wouldn't be the first time he made a Sternritter. But Shaz Domino technically doesn't have a Schrift, it's simply an honorary title. Would this mean BG9 would only have an honorary Schrift, or would the soul Gremmy binded be able to have its own real Schrift? I have no idea, and frankly this theory raises more questions than it answers. One of the most ridiculous theories is that BG9 is some sort of reanimated or altered corpse of Xiaolong, the Arrancar. BG9 shares a lot of similarities to Xiaolong's design, particularly his resurrection mask. On top of that, BG9 and Xiaolong are both 6'3", and they even share the same Japanese voice actor. That's a lot of coincidences. As funny as it would be, unfortunately this theory has no weight whatsoever. If BG9 was Xiaolong, Soifan would have never gotten her Bankai back, as the holification would do nothing. The holification is also shown to weaken BG9, and that wouldn't happen either. So, while it is funny, I really doubt Xiaolong is BG9. And finally, onto my personal theory, BG9 isn't the real Sternritter K. Based on everything we know, it's likely the K stands for the knowledge. Assuming this is true, I think it'd make the most sense if the real Sternritter K was sitting somewhere within Silburn, soaking up knowledge and working on things like BG9. Making BG9 would allow the real Sternritter K to sit in his lab and do sciencey things, while simultaneously providing use to Yuha and gathering data directly from the field. The real Sternritter K could have also devoted their time to making the Daten, and maybe even creating the medallion that steals Bankai. BG9 not being the real Sternritter would also explain his name. It's very possible that this is the 9th BG that the real Sternritter K worked on. But what would BG stand for? I have no guesses personally, but I found someone suggesting that stands for Battle Golem, which would certainly make sense. Now, I will admit this theory has holes, most notably BG9's execution. If BG9 wasn't the real Sternritter K, it'd mean his execution would do absolutely nothing, as BG9 himself wouldn't have had Yhwach's soul. so there would be nothing to return. Of course, it's possible there are two Ks, and the original K made BG9 as the vessel for a soul, who received his own Schrift that also had the letter K, but I feel like that is way too far of a reach. The second hole is that we never see the real Sternritter K. If BG9 was just a creation, that means we'd have to see his creator, right? Considering we have Mayuri and Kisuke, a scientist battle would have made a ton of sense and honestly would have been expected. That could be chalked up to Kubo rushing the story, but again, it does feel like a reach. So, what do you think BG9 is? Robot, soul vessel, maybe even a cyborg Shalong? I'd love to hear your theories, so make sure to comment below what you think BG9 is. BG9 is one of the most interesting characters in Bleach for me, and I've always wanted to explore what he really is, and I hope we get an answer in the 1000 Year Blood War anime. Thanks for watching, and that's all for now.